All right, guys, we got a Wednesday night special pattern discussion. There's been a lot of talk about what this weather pattern is going to do as we head to Christmas and beyond. A lot of negative sentiment, and I figured I'd try to take a stab at what I see to see if it's worth hitting the panic button like many of you are. And in short, I really don't think it is. I think there's a lot that needs to be worked out here, and I think there's a lot of positives actually too. Especially living in New England, I certainly would be hitting the panic button. Mid-Atlantic, you got to remember, if we see some moderation, I mean, in my winter outlook, I was expecting that. That's based on a lot of research I did. I do think that this ridge in the southeast is going to flex its muscles at times, and we might start to see that a little bit next week, but that does not mean there's not going to be storms. So let's dive into it. The first thing is we're going to have this little clipper tomorrow night that comes through. Some good high ratio snows through the Midwest and up here in New Jersey, Mid-Atlantic, maybe 1 to 2 inches if we're lucky, if we get a little bit of enhancement of precipitation, but nothing crazy there. Storm for Friday, I mean, this is just not what you want to see for a storm to develop. You have southern energy hanging back, you have northern energy ahead of it. I mean, there could be some room for correction, but at this point, it's just a storm offshore, and I just don't see it happening. If anything, you might get a little bit of enhanced snow in the mountains in Vermont as this little piece moves through over the weekend. So I actually might head skiing up there because of that, because I got some snow today, and there might get some more snow in northern Vermont this weekend. So let's look at the pattern. So 1 to 5 day period, you can see pretty much it's cold. I mean, you're going to have some cold air moving in tonight. It's actually moving in right now in the wake of the storm. Stays relatively cold for the next couple of days. And then next week, we're going to see some moderation. So what you see here is you see a southeast ridge popping up. You have this little piece over Alaska, so you are drilling some cold air into the pattern, but you have some more energy hanging back over the west. Now, what could really happen here is, and I'm not bullish on the Mid-Atlantic, but if you get a little more blocking here, you get this piece to push out, you could get a nice piece of energy to ride along this ridge, run into a little high pressure that could form up here if there's confluence with this pushed out a little bit. And you can get a storm next week in say, New England, and even possibly southern England. So we've got to watch it. So I'm not panicking about this, but there is some moderation. If you look at things like the Madden-Julian oscillation, which tracks basically convection in the equatorial Pacific, it goes through different phases depending on where the convection is, influences the jet stream. It's going to be moving into the western Pacific, which is not really the coldest phase for the east. But if we can get this into phase 8, that would support not having as aggressive of a southeast ridge like the models are showing in the 12 to 16 day period. I mean, if you look at this up here, I mean, that's an extreme anomaly. So it's common sense. You have an anomaly like this moving into the poles that drills all that cold air down. But we have this ridge popping up, so people are seeing this and saying, well, this is warm. Well, it is, but it's really not at the same time, because if the model's a little bit off here, and this cold air presses a little bit more, and this ridge is a little more suppressed, you get a lot of action along the East Coast heading up to Christmas, and that's what this period covers up to Christmas. So if you look at that and combine that with the MJO potentially going to phase 8, and a phase 8 MJO, actually don't have it here, but I do. So a phase 8 MJO does support a little more troughing in the east. I'm saying to myself, should we really be hitting the panic button? I don't think so. I think there's room for this to be suppressed. But if you live in Philly, Baltimore, Washington, most New Jersey, I get it. It's not looking good. But if you're in New England, and even maybe the northern Mid-Atlantic, I think we can have a little action on the table here, guys. So nothing to panic about. I mean, look at other things like the stratosphere. This is actually an initialization image, so I'm not speculating 200 hours out because the stratosphere is erratic. But there is warming going on in the stratosphere, and we're going to see the stress it puts on the vortex. And again, if this vortex can get pushed off its axis in the right direction, a lot of those negative anomalies over 2 to 3 weeks will work their way down, and we again can support a period of colder conditions along the east, not warmer conditions. So let's see what happens. I'm not panicking here. There's a lot of positives. I certainly see the moderation next week, but there could be a surprise there. Look, if we get to the end of December and this ridge just flares up and this backs off a little bit to the west, then yeah, I get it. I mean, that's a very bad sign. But if we see the models correct more east with all this, I really wouldn't be surprised yet. So give it some time, guys. Hang in there. White Christmas could be on the table for many areas still. Let's just see if we can get this party started. That's all for now.